RDM is a small UK car company based in Coventry. It makes pods, small vehicles that take people the last mile of their journey, usually from a railway station or a car park into the center of a city. RDM is going to be represented today by Simon Brewerton, its Chief Technology Officer, and he's going to talk about the company's attitudes towards CSR and RRI. One of the interesting things about this interview is that Simon is going to say that he didn't know very much about RRI, about responsible research innovation, before starting his association with Prisma, but it turns out that many of the practices that RDM was using actually are in keeping with responsible research innovation. And that's a topic I want to take up here. Why is it that this car company was able to engage in innovation without knowing explicitly about responsible research innovation, and yet was able to adopt practices that are in keeping with responsible research innovation? And it seems to me that there are two answers to that question. One answer is to do with the way this automated vehicle, the pod, was developed. It was developed with funding from the UK government. The funding went to a consortium made up of quite a number of car companies, and the consortium also included local authorities, urban governments that collaborated with the car companies in arriving at what automated cars should be designed like. That input from the urban authorities was in effect the input of a community. The urban authorities are elected authorities. They have a good sense of what their electorates want. They were able to introduce some of the attitudes of their electorate in collaborating on the consortium with RDM. So with RDM and with this car consortium in general, it wasn't a case of a company having to go out and find out what social attitudes are. It was more a matter of collaborating with representatives of the local community, with this urban local authority, and finding out from them what their priorities were. And their priorities also included certain environmental standards and certain requirements to do with reducing the density of traffic in one local authority, namely Milton Keynes. So the first explanation of why this unconscious RRI could be adopted is that RDM was involved in a consortium with local authorities that represent public opinion. But there's a second reason why RDM was likely to use the procedures of responsible research innovation, and this has to do with its sector. Car production is a sector in which safety requirements are very, very well established. It would be unthinkable for cars to be developed, still less automated cars to be developed, without enormous attention to safety. This is one of the reasons why responsible research innovation was anticipated, because responsible research innovation is to do with minimizing harm, and the safety preoccupations of a car company are also to do with minimizing harm. At the same time, the environmental and social acceptability of cars represented through the local authorities, as we've said already. So what might seem paradoxical about Simon's description of the RDM project, that's to say that they engaged in responsible research innovation without knowing that they were engaging in responsible research innovation, is not so paradoxical after all.
I'm Simon Burton. I'm the CTO of RDM Group in Coventry. RDM make the four-person driverless vehicle that you can see behind me. This is a low-speed autonomous vehicle, so the maximum speed it could ever run is 15 miles an hour. Typically, it only runs at walking speed or just above. Its purpose is to take you the last mile of your journey, so you'd only be in one of these vehicles for a few minutes, taking you from wherever you parked your car to the centre of town, or possibly from the rail station up to the to the movie theatre or whatever. It's an on-demand system, so you hail it with an app. You would see how long it's going to take to come to meet you, and the progress of it would be plotted on that app, and then you can make sure you're in the right place to meet it. And then you would use a QR code to gain entry. It'll open the door, you climb in, and it takes you where you want to go. The advantage of having a fleet of these vehicles in your city, you wouldn't, as a user, you wouldn't own these vehicles. They would be run a little bit like the Boris bike kind of system. So you use them when you need them, and then when you get out of them and leave them, they then take themselves off to find another trip to take with another user. So they're electric, they're zero emission at the point of use. These particular ones are just a low voltage system, so it also runs very nicely with renewables, solar, wind, local generation, and the vehicles themselves will be much more convenient than, for instance, parking at a park and ride out of town, waiting for a bus, the bus taking you to the centre of the town, but you didn't really want to go there, you wanted to go somewhere a few minutes out of the centre. Whereas these systems, they literally come to your car door, you climb in one of these vehicles and they take you exactly where you want to go. Even if that's inside a shopping centre, they can actually run indoors as well. So the pods themselves are fully autonomous. So the decision to run or not lies with the vehicle itself. So there is no person on board the vehicle driving it. It is driven by the system. And the system itself decides what is the appropriate speed to be running at the point of time, depending on how many other actors there are in the area that it's running. So if you run in a very crowded pedestrian precinct, obviously it would be programmed to run extremely slowly. If anyone stands in front of it, it will stop and it will not move until that person or object is removed. We also have a remote supervision capability. So we have a team of people in a control room that remotely view what's going on by CCTV and also from feeds from the vehicles themselves. So those people can also intervene. So the vehicle is safe by design, but actually also has a human supervisor as part of the control system. As part of our project work that we've done with the Prisma project, we've been audited effectively against certain criteria that were generated from the Prisma project to see how responsible our innovation is at RDM. And it was reassuring and somewhat refreshing to find out that we scored reasonably high on that scale, even though we hadn't actually consciously run an internal project to be responsible with our innovation. We're a family-owned business. We're guided by family principles still within our business. The decision makers of the business had their own morals, their own rules, and we try to do the best for our business, and that includes doing the best for the outward-facing business, which basically turns that you have to be responsible because you want to be inclusive for all the potential customers, and you want to know at the end of the day, I did the right thing because I engineered things and I ran the systems in a responsible and in a way that I would expect them to be run if I was a customer. So put yourself in the customer's shoes, run it as if you were your own worst customer, and you'll be pretty good on the track of being responsible for your innovation.